Hello, I'm Jeremy Licht. I played Anthony Fremont in Twilight Zone The Movie, and you're watching CF3 TV.
Hello and welcome to another episode of CF3 TV here on Project Nerd.
The Nerd.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Jeff Johnson.
And our co-host over there, he's a mime. Dames Marvs. Dames, what are you drinking today in celebration of the Twilight Zone film?
It's raining on the outside of the plane, and it's raining water, so I'm drinking water.
That's a great way to link what you're drinking to the program. I of course have some a beer from Munich, the Polaner from Munich, and if you recall, he goes to Nazi Germany in the first segment.
I do recall.
Racist Vic Morrow. And so that's why I'm drinking this. Jeff, Diet Dr.
Just
Pepper?
got a thermos of water, like as usual. Not sponsored by Mountain Dew or Dr. Pepper this time. That's on you guys.
One time you had Diet Dr. Pepper, and then they told us no.
Hey, that's it.
That's right.
And you guys don't have any snacks for the Twilight Zone today?
I have with me, as always, my giant wad of gum that I've been working on chewing. And
well, I brought enough to share. I have my dinner, because every dinner consists of, you need like chips, pop, bubble gum,
Jeff has
Oreos,
toxic waste.
This is what you get when you order from like Fright Rags. They send you some candy and stickers and stuff.
Well, candy is what you should have for dinner, according to Anthony Fremont.
Right.
So I brought enough dinner stuff for you guys to enjoy.
Oh, thank you.
I won't be able to partake. I'm in the wrong state. I'm in a championship-winning state. So
that's right.
I'm going to virtually hand this to you. You're supposed to reach your arm off the screen and
pull it out.
Oh my God!
Guys, we had a wonderful guest for the Twilight Zone episode, and I was the only one there for the interview. You guys had other obligations. I was totally fine. And his name was Jeremy Licht, and he played Anthony Fremont in the third segment of the film, Joe Dante's segment, which was It's a Good Life. That is a remake of the classic Twilight Zone episode with Billy Mumy, of course, playing that role. Dames is lighting up, and we're going to go ahead and introduce that interview with Jeremy. He gave us a lot of great information about his time working on the film, and without further ado, here it is. So tell me about how you wound up hearing about this film and the casting process, and had you watched any Twilight Zone at that point in your life? I know I personally watched it as a little kid, and that's why it's some of the most impressionable programming I've ever seen in my life. So,
yeah, I had watched some of it. I think being a young kid, we only saw the reruns, right? Because it was much earlier, it was black and white. I saw some of it. Some of it was scary. Most of it was weird. Some of it was freaky. Some of it was light. Like you never knew what you were getting, right? And I think that was part of the allure or the mystique of the original Twilight Zone, is that you didn't know what you were going to get or what direction it was going to go. So I certainly knew of the show, the audition. So I remember auditioning for it, and it was a multi-step process. I knew that it was Steven Spielberg produced, and he was coming off of a small film called E.T., okay? And so it was a big deal. As I recall, did not get the whole script, which nowadays is very normal not to get the whole script, but really just a little piece of it because there is such a lockdown. They don't want this getting out there. It would have been harder to get it out there back then, but now, like, you can just copy and paste to the world. So it never happens. Like now, and I still audition, and so, but it's like a piece of a piece. Like, here's your 4 lines, but you're not getting much of what's going on because, we have not even non-disclosure, but they don't want anything getting out. I totally get that. So I auditioned, and it was just, I want to say just casting director or what have you. And then there was a second audition and possibly a third. And I remember on the second or third, and forgive me, but we're going back a little ways, Joe Dante, who was the director, who had directed Piranha and some other things as well. He's got quite a well-established career, was the director. And I auditioned for him, and he really liked it, and he was very animated and excited. And I remember coming out of that audition, and my mom always took me to audition. I'm like, this felt really good. And sometimes you can't tell, almost like a regular job interview. I really don't know if this went well, if they really liked me, if they were BSing me, or if there was nothing there. Or there are times I've come out of it like, that wasn't very good, and then like come back, call back. So you never know what people are thinking. So then the accident happened on the set of Twilight Zone. And as I'm sure, if your viewers don't know, and I'll give a really quick lowdown, the movie Twilight Zone was 4 different segments that were remade. One was an original segment, which was the very first one, the one with Vic Morrow. And then there were 3 other segments that were remakes of original Twilight Zones. So they were filming the original one with Vic Morrow, where he plays this racist that gets thrown back into various situations against sort of the race that he was railing against, to give a very quick lowdown on it. They were shooting that.
That's, if I can stop you, that's
Please
really
do.
interesting, because I had that question, like, had you even started filming by the time this accident and the other segment had happened? And it sounds like this was one of the first things they were working on?
Absolutely. So it was one of the first things that they were working on. I know that ours was not shot yet. I know that the airplane with John Lithgow, which was the last one, was not done yet. And I'm not sure about the second one, which was Kick the Can, where the old people become young, etc., was shot yet. But I know they were shooting the first one because that's when the accident happened. I wasn't even hired yet. I wasn't even hired. I wasn't on set. I wasn't anything. And that shut everything down, obviously. We figured, my agent figured, that's going to wrap this up, right? It's a pretty, sadly, Vic Morrow lost his life. 2 young kids lost their life. It was an absolute tragedy what happened.
And if it comes back, you're going to be too old to play him, maybe, right?
Yeah, I didn't even think that. I just thought, oh my God, like what a tragic thing that happened here. And wow, I did get close, but that was kind of out of my head at that point and moving on. The film was put on back burner, and I want to say 6 months, a year later, I get a call from my agent. They want to see you again for Twilight Zone. It's like, they're doing this thing? Great. So I go in, and again, I can't remember whether it was like 4th audition or 5th audition, and it was at Universal. And I walk into the room, and it's Joe Dante and Steven Spielberg. I've worked with some great people in my life. I'm not patting myself on the back. I've been very, very fortunate. But walking into a room and performing for Steven Spielberg is a little bit big. It's kind of big. And I went in and I auditioned, and I did the same thing I had done each time, because really you want to kind of copy and paste what you had done before because they liked it. Same clothes, same look, same tone, same everything. And I get a call. Thank you. We talked for a while, explained what they were doing, and that was it. And I got a call and ended up getting an offer. and we began shooting, and we were over at Warner Brothers in Burbank. Almost the entire script, with the exception of a couple of exteriors, like when Anthony walks up to the house with the Kathleen Quinlan character, Ellen. We walk up to a house which was out in Nowheresville, and then there was in the diner with Dick Miller when Anthony sort of lures Helen in when she hits him with the car. There you go, Dick Miller. What an amazing, amazing talent. And I love that you have that prep. You are so well prepared for this. This is awesome. So otherwise, we were on the Warner Brothers lot in a sound studio for 3 months because the whole thing takes place over one day. So we're in the same costumes, the same everything for 3 months. Then we finished the main production, and then they went into post-production for another 3 or 4 months to do all the effects, all the Uncle Walt pulling the rabbit out, and the puppets, and the chopping up the set, and the whirling derby. Yeah, all that stuff, right? So when Kevin there, God rest his soul, Kevin McCarthy, who played Uncle Walt, what another amazing talent. When he did that with the rabbit, all that he did when we were acting was, I can't know if you see my hands, but over here, I have the opposite, like this. And he goes, no. And Joe Dante was like, no, he's bigger. The character, the puppet's going to be bigger, right? Where now they could green screen it and all that. It's no green screen. This is all like, we're going to insert that into your thing, and it's going to look kind of like this. And all of you actors are scared, but Anthony, you're loving it. And this is how Joe kind of did it. It's like, here's how it's going to look, and here's how it's going to feel, and here's how you're, right? And this is the mania that I need for this to work. And he was just kind of this amazing animated director, but he knew exactly what he wanted. He knew exactly what he saw for this frenetic energy that was that segment. And I will say that because of that accident, I mean, there were people watching out for safety on our set, unlike anything I'd ever been on, because they were like, we can't afford anything to happen anywhere with anything. Anybody getting hurt, anybody tripping over a wire, like, because I think obviously they had, their insurance company was like, look, anything happens. Somebody coughs wrong. I shouldn't say that today in today's COVID, but like somebody gets sick and we're shutting it down. So it was, that was my experience auditioning. It was the biggest audition process I had ever been on to that point. Only Hogan Family ended up more because there were layers of producers and then networks and stuff like that. But Twilight Zone was a big audition process for me.
Awesome. Now, had you been guided to watch the original It's a Good Life starring Jeremy?
No. I hadn't. And I actually hadn't watched that. I hadn't been guided either way, but they had actually said, that's so funny. I'm friends with him on Facebook, and his wife was actually taught my daughter in preschool, which is just a crazy set of coincidences. So and Bill was actually in our segment of Twilight Zone, in the diner with Dick Miller. He was one of the two guys there. Look at you, you're so good. On the right there, that's Bill, who played my characters when he was a kid. Was awesome, and they did a lot of that. With the exception of the kids, most of the actors in Twilight Zone, even small parts, were former actors of original Twilight Zone, the series. So I had not been guided, and at that point did not want to see what he did. Not because I didn't appreciate it, because I have seen it many times since then, but it was just a very different take on the same character, right? And I love what he did, but sometimes you don't want to see the original because it might change the way you go about it. And it was just a choice I made. I wasn't told to or told not to. It was just a choice. So, that's what that was. But I loved working with him that day. And I know he's got a good musical career at this point. I don't know if you're friends with him online, but he's got a good one there.
Can you talk a little bit about your co-star, Kathleen Quinlan, and what she was like to work with?
Kathleen was fantastic to work with. Kathleen and I had a lot of scenes together. So the nature of this segment was really interesting because Kathleen's character is tricked, right, into coming into this world that she doesn't know anything about, and for a while the audience isn't in on it, right? They're with her, like something is off. I don't know what it is, and I can't really get out. I'm all of a sudden in a bear trap, but I don't know what it is. And this sweet little boy, is being treated so strangely by these people, right? And then it turns on its head when there's a reveal. But I loved how it was written in that the audience, and as a watcher, even myself, right, as Jeremy, doesn't know what is it's weird as hell, but I don't know what it is. And she played it beautifully. To that point, you have the other actors. You have Nancy Cartwright, played my sister. You've got right there. You've got Kevin McCarthy there. You've got Patricia Barry right there in the skirt, playing my mom. You've got William Shallert on the left there playing Dad. In the back, you've got Nancy, and then in a small part but memorable, you've got Cherie Curry, who played my sister. There you go. Who I gave no mouth. Now, I don't know, little known fact, but I'm sure you guys know Cherie Curry was in the Runaways.
Yeah.
She was quite in the punk scene. I didn't know that till I was...
Cherry Bomb.
Cherry Bomb, right? I didn't know that till I was older, and I was like, oh my God, she was part of the punk culture, which at 12, I wasn't into the punk culture, but it was just such a great, cool thing. I saw her on set, and I'm walking toward my schoolroom, which is outside of the soundstage. Where's my hand? She's walking in. She's got no mouth. Now, most people are going to think, okay, what a great CG. That was not CG. That was makeup, and like 4 or 5 hours of makeup. And I didn't know they were shooting that day, that thing, and it was completely disconcerting. It was very strange to see that, but it looked really good. It looked really good, so realistic that I was like, oh my God, thank God they must be shooting it that day, because that would be awful. But she looked amazing. I actually did an event with her, God, it could be 5, 6 years ago. We sat next to each other and we got to chat, and it was awesome. She's great. But I didn't exactly meet her. We didn't get to talk that day because they took her mouth away. So those characters, Cherie excluded, but the family, excluding Kathleen, worked really, really well together to create that crazy atmosphere where they were in on something that the rest of us wasn't or weren't. And if you watched it again, you'll see this manic, this panicked, crazed energy, but they can't let on what it is, which, but it's also light and smiley and creepy. And then you throw the cartoons in there. That Joe Dante created such a, if you will, a playground, but different characters playing in their own playground, right? I'm in my own, Kathleen is in her own, and then they're all in their own, and we all have to gel because they're afraid of me. I'm afraid of them revealing the secret, right? And Kathleen recognizes she's fallen down a rabbit hole like Alice, right? That she doesn't know how to get out of. And I'm able to look at this. You know, I filmed it at 12. I looked younger, but I was about 12. And I look at this now at, crazy to say, 50 years old. And the beauty of the dance, of how the characters all interacted, and how it makes you feel. I think almost the best example of that in Twilight Zone, frankly, is the George Miller segment, the fourth one with John Lithgow, and how it opens up. And forgive me for segueing to that, but talk about a feel where you're watching this man, and the first cut of him is in the bathroom, right? And anyone who's been on a plane knows that airplane bathroom is absolutely tiny, right? And he's just trapped. And all of a sudden you recognize this is how this episode is starting, and it's only going to get crazier from here. And I love that feeling, having directed a little bit. I love the of when you make an audience member feel. And so coming back to our episode, the feeling that you are Kathleen, you are Helen Foley, wondering oh my God, I hit this kid with my car. Like, is he okay? Is it a trap? Oh yeah, I'll give him a ride home. Of course, he asks, and he's nice and he's sweet and he's kind. I take him home, and that door closes, and holy shit, right? Now I can't get out. And what have I got myself into? And so I love how it felt. My favorite still is my favorite episode of the four, when people ask me, is actually the airplane one. I loved our episode, but I love the feeling of that airplane one. It's absolutely terrifying. I'm not a great flyer as it is, but the feeling of being on that. And I know they shot that after us, because one soundstage over on Warner Brothers, I went over there and there was the mock-up of the airplane. So I knew they hadn't, and they were still putting it together on hydraulics to up and down and all that, right? So I knew that, okay, that they're going to shoot that next. Anyway, again, you asked a short question. I gave you a very long, convoluted answer. So that is my answer.
As usual, as per usual for you, you answered lots of other questions that I have.
Good.
Which, like, I was going to ask you, do you ever even go back to watch this? But you have. I mean, you said retrospectively seeing this again at 50, you know?
Yeah, I watched it. I showed. So my daughter is 12. My son is 8. My son is still too young for it because things scare him, and I'm not quite ready with that. But my daughter loved it. I still haven't shown. I showed her just my segment, but I think we're getting closer to showing her the last one.
20,000.
I'm going to try to figure it out. Not before we're going to get on an airplane, because I think that may tarnish that a little bit. But yeah, I have watched it, and it is a trip. But I remember like filming it, and oh gosh, that's like, where was that film? Oh well, that was right here in Burbank. Or it looks like a house. Oh, I know it looks like it's the movie magic is so much fun in that. Or my daughter will hear the voice, and I'll be like, you hear the voice of Bart Simpson? Does that sound familiar? Oh, that's Nancy Cartwright, who went on to do that and had a fantastic career after that. So,
you sent her into the cartoon universe, and she never came out.
She never. I like to give myself credit. I'm waiting for some sort of payola on that. I think I'm going to be waiting a little while, but she can keep it. She certainly earned it. When people ask me, like yourself, ask me about the film, it comes out about the accident, which is, I think, normal. I mean, I happen to be involved in 2 projects where there was some controversy, right? I mean, Valerie's firing and Twilight Zone, the accident, none of which, thankfully, I had anything to do with, but it is, that's what it's known for, and I get that. And I think that that's a normal question for people to ask. I think it was. I think people were curious about the movie. I think you had the diehard people that said, I'm going to go and see Twilight Zone the movie because I want to see the remakes of this. And I was such a hardcore Twilight Zone fan that I want to see it. I don't care. It could suck, and I still want to see it. Then you're going to have people that go, I want to see this because I wonder if there's anything about this accident in there, which clearly there isn't. It was the last thing that was filmed, and they chose to keep his segment intact with the exception of that particular part of Twilight Zone, which of the segment, which I guess tended not to be as critical, right? Sadly. And then you had people who caught it later, who caught it on HBO, or they rented it at Blockbuster at the time, or wherever it was, and went, "Oh my gosh!" And then it kind of took on a cult feel of its own, which a lot of films do. Now, I see actually in your background behind you, it looks like over your left shoulder, you've got the other one. You've got Wolfman Got Nards, which is the doc made by my friend Andre Gower, who did many episodes of Hogan Family, and in fact had a bit of a medical issue over the last couple of days. And so I want to send all my good thoughts out to Andre, right? Because he is an incredible person, and we wish him a very, very speedy recovery. That he gets better soon. But he did Wolfman Got Nards based on his film Monster Squad, which didn't do much back in the day, but took a huge cult following. And he did this documentary based on the fans of who used to come out to see this and him at various conventions. And so I think that's the beautiful part of the internet, right? Is that people get to see what you're doing. Right, you're interviewing me, and people are going, "What the hell did this kid turn out like?" And oh my God, he's 50. That makes me old. And look at him now. Oh my God, he looks better or worse or fatter or thinner. I always thought he was skinnier. He was taller, right? Or what? I can't believe he has kids. So but it kind of gets you in touch with people, right? And things that you loved as a kid, you can go seek out and realize, oh my gosh, I wasn't the only one. I wasn't the only one who really loved that. And there is some sort of Reddit message board about that somewhere that you can find, right, that people are into. And so I think it's neat that people still like the film and that people still appreciate it. I want to say, oh my gosh, what was it? It could have been 2014, right? They did a huge thing at Mann's Chinese Theater or Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood, an anniversary. What would it have been? It would have been 30 years. 30-year anniversary, right? Ish, 30?
2013? Yeah.
Yeah, 2013. I was in 2013. So it would have been the 30-year anniversary of Twilight Zone being released. And there was a Q&A, and I went out for this, and there were a ton of people and they screened it, and there were a ton of people, and I was so touched that people still like it, and it's relevant to some people, and like I was saying earlier, it made people feel. Look, you could like Anthony, you could hate Anthony, you could think it was this or that, or you liked the film, you hated the film. That's fine, right? But it made you feel something. And it makes you now watch it, and maybe you're nostalgic for that. Or you remember where you were at home when you popped that VHS or beta copy in, or you remember where you were at home when you flipped it on and HBO showed it, and you were like, oh my gosh, I remember that film. I had a grainy copy of it that I bootlegged, whatever. I like it that people feel from that art. I think is a wonderful thing that I don't think will ever go away, regardless of streaming or how you get your content. That people want to feel, and whatever it is that makes you feel.
And welcome back to CF3 TV. This week's movie is the 1983 Twilight Zone The Movie. Got 4 different directors and 4 classic stories being retold for the big screen. There's a bigger budget. There's a bigger cast. All right, Dane and Dames, what did you think of the Twilight Zone?
The original
I
TV
suppose
show?
we're going to find out. Oh,
The
original
movie.
TV show is classic.
Well, yeah, of course.
The original TV show, I'm a huge fan of, as evidenced by my Mystic Sphere.
That's awesome.
This is from one of my favorite episodes. A William Shatner episode, but not the one that was remade for this.
Right.
Twilight Zone, the movie. Something that I didn't actually see until after I had been watching the show, or I had seen the show many, many times. Then I found out there was a movie, and that they remade 3 of the classic stories for that movie, and then they added a new one. I was reading, I think it was Mark, I think his name is Mark Zickery, wrote the Twilight Zone companion, like the episode guide, and it was amazing. And he had a whole chapter where he covered the 80s film, and like the whole movie the whole chapter, the whole movie has had this pall cast over it because 3 actors died in the filming of the first segment, which was John Landis's segment. And the children who died were not even like legally hired. They were being paid under the table. So it led to this whole lawsuit in this trial, child labor law trial, that, it took forever to get resolved. The movie was already done by the time it was resolved. But then, like, anything that you ever see in the movies, like with child actors since then, has been affected by the outcome of this trial. And so I think Keith Coogan was talking to us once about Adventures of Babysitting and how Maya Bruton, she couldn't work past certain hours. It was all because of that trial. And the trial he was referring to, of course, was this one. So this had an impact that was felt in Hollywood that had nothing to do really with like the box office receipts or anything.
Right.
Here's a screenshot of the directors and the segments they directed. If you guys had to like rank the order, your order of preference, it's actually in the order they appear in the film as well. What would you guys go? Give me the numbers in your order. Jeff first.
4, 1, 3, 2. I'd go with the 20,000 feet in the air segment with George Miller is the better one.
Okay. Dames, what about you?
4, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so you hated Joe Dante's segment. Okay.
No, I don't hate Joe Dante's segment at all.
Just didn't prefer his segment to everybody else.
My ranking is 4, 3, 1, 2. So very close to Jeff's, except for I think we have 1 and 3 flip flop. But we both thought that Steven Spielberg's was terrible. And Damon, I can't remember what, I think you ranked it 3rd.
Yeah.
For me, it's a little too much for what he was doing with his TV show, Amazing Stories. It was a little too lighthearted. The rest had some really potent themes and everything going on, so it didn't really fit the mold.
Amazing Stories, that's a great comparison. And to be quite honest with you, it wasn't that amazing. The Amazing Stories were way better than what was presented here, which was a remake of an old episode. They added nothing to it. Now the casting of what's his name from The Shining, James, what's his name?
Scatman Crothers.
Yeah, he was good. He's always good, but that's probably the highlight of the thing. And then I think when they're asking these kids to act like really old people, it's just so cheesy, like the voices that they give them and stuff. It was bad, and the original episode doesn't do too much for me. I always skip it.
Okay.
So I don't know if you guys are big Twilight Zone fans at all. But
yeah, I should have grabbed mine.
My dad's got the DVD set that I've gone through once already. So
Do you have the actual box, or are those still from when you originally bought?
these are from before they released it as a box. I was buying them season by season when they came out.
individually? Yeah.
There's only a couple of them.
Hey, support your physical media. Go out and get that show. It's a classic.
And there's one.
Yeah, I do have the box. I wish I would have brought it down here because it differs.
And if you were like a huge Twilight Zone fan, the special features on the TV show stuff is amazing because they have like audio commentaries, and there's one where Mickey Rooney does an audio commentary, and he gets mad about something, and he leaves 5 minutes into the episode.
Oh my god, that's great!
And that's the end of the commentary. And they put it on.
I'm done with this.
They also
he was super old, so I think he was like, maybe not all the way there, but it's weird that he agreed to do it.
Maybe you should have played some Kick the Can before you did that commentary track.
Yes.
I just want to point out, Dane, that they're never going to look better than they look on that. I mean,
No.
No, they did a great job on the resto on that.
Amazing.
I mean, would I buy 4K
yeah.
Masters? Probably, because I bought it I've bought Twilight Zone in like every format I can think of, so multiple times on DVD as well. So I think we covered Kick the Can enough, because that's just a pitiful excuse for a segment.
We kicked its can off of here now. So
The first segment, which, where is he? Vic Morrow died making. What do you guys think of that one? That's an original story, so nobody knew what the ending might be if they had been fans of the old show. There's Vic. He's at the bar. He's saying some very offensive things, and it did strike me as kind of timely. Like, there are people that are doing this right now, and they're like not shy about it either. Like, he's not shy about it.
I think, to me, this one struck me the hardest, because I was listening to some uncomfortable verbiage, and it's funny that you mentioned that it's timely. I don't know that if it was made now that they might use some of those terms that
probably
he used, like the N-word.
multiple times.
They basically used everything that you can possibly for every descending type of person in the world. But what I thought was remarkably timely about this particular segment was, it's kind of what a lot of people, these type of people, need today. They need to, if you, even us as people that are woke or whatever you want to call us, it would not do us harm to live in someone else's shoes for a day and truly experience the experience of being called these things or thought about. The thing that like, I almost started crying when this happened, when he's at the table with his buddies and he says that, and the black guy gets up and he leans over, he goes, "I don't really care what you guys think of me." He's like, "I just don't want to hear it." Like,
Stephen Williams, man.
I was
actor
like,
to do
holy
that.
shit, dude. I was like, what kind of restraint do you have to be able to do that and not just want to kill the person, for being that ignorant? But I thought during this entire segment and every part that he went through, it would definitely do some good in the world if some people could live in those, as those people that are being. I think that it would change a lot of the negativity that's going on these days. That's just my thought.
Yeah, this the whole segment, though, there's a pall cast over it for me, and like, it's hard for me to even watch it, just knowing people died making this, and John Landis he didn't take ownership of it at all. And in fact, there's the rumor out there that this is what ended his friendship with Steven Spielberg, because Spielberg was just appalled by it. But anyway, they were filming a scene, Vic Morrow and two kids. He was supposed to be like rescuing them, and they're like Vietnamese kids, and he's supposed to be rescuing them, like becoming the hero or whatever. The chopper that they were using was too close to some explosives, and it melted the blades of the chopper, and it crashed down on them and killed them all.
Yikes.
So, like, the pilots, the chopper pilot lived and everything, but the actors died. So yeah, that's that one. And then we have Joe Dante's It's a Good Life, remaking the episode that starred Billy Mumy. I like the special effects in this.
They're great.
I don't think this can hold a candle to the original episode, which has it's very unique in the Twilight Zone canon, in that, like, Rod Serling comes out and gives it a special introduction. Like, it's not just him narrating, or he's like has to describe this town that they live in, and it's like 3 times as long as the normal thing that he would do at the opening. And I just think it's more terrifying in the black and white original episode. Bill Mumy is creepier than Jeremy looks pretty creepy here, but Bill Mumy was just a very creepy looking kid.
Jeremy reminded me of the kid from the movie The Pit, actually, while I was watching this. I'm like, oh my God. If he was a little older and a little cheesier with his shtick, it's The Pit. I'm like, oh my god.
And speaking of Billy, he grew up to look like this guy here who makes a cameo in the diner at the beginning of the segment.
You should have
And
pushed
then-
the kid.
Another thing I noticed is like Helen is getting directions to like towns, and they're giving like town names. All those towns are famous towns from Twilight Zone episodes that they talk about, like Cliffordville and
Yep.
Ridgeview and places like that. So, yeah, I thought it was funny. What is there to say about this? So, Kathleen Quinlan was the element that wasn't in the original episode. There was no outsider coming in the original episode. And so that changes the whole dynamic because he actually likes her. And at the end, they go away together. A happy ending just doesn't do it for me. These special effects do it for me. This is great.
Yeah, that was great.
And that would like forecast a lot of stuff that Joe Dante would do later, but the ending is just, it's too happy for Twilight Zone, I
It
think.
depends on how you view it. It looks like she was a little more accepting of his powers than, oh, what can I teach this kid and what can he do for me?
She could turn out to be conniving and like
She had that look on her face at the end. That's how I was reading it anyway. So,
You know what?
yeah, it's happy, but it can also depend on how you view it.
We could debate this all day long. She's adorable, by the way. But I just want a caramel apple.
for dinner.
Yeah.
And this look here, Jeff, might be what you're talking about. She's like, I could become the evil puppet master.
Yeah, I can control this kid. He's all about me. All right, let's hit the road and let's see what damage we can do.
It's kind of sick, too. I mean, let me show you my tetes and get whatever I want.
The
then you've
airline ride from hell. Oh, that's what I call this segment.
Nightmare at 20,000 feet. For my money, still not as good as the original episode, but
Yeah.
very good.
Lithgow was tremendous in this. If it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have liked this segment, actually.
Great casting choice.
Um,
Like, I grew up knowing him as a comedian, and then
Mhm.
later I would wind up seeing his stuff that was from before, like 30 Rock or whatever. And not 30 Rock, but Third Rock from the Sun.
Or Harry and the Hendersons.
In like in Harry and the Hendersons, and he was always in the earlier 80s in like more dramatic roles like this and Terms of
Raising
Endearment.
Cain.
Yep, in Terms of Endearment, and so yeah, he's a great actor, and now he's gone back to doing mostly drama. So
Well, for you Dexter fans, he's coming back in the next season.
Um,
what'd you guys think of the Gremlin?
It doesn't look as good as the original to me.
Right.
And it's
The
funny
original's
that you
dumb
mentioned
looking, but it's dumb looking, but I it's just what I love.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because, like, I remember reading in Mark Zickry's original Twilight Zone companion, they didn't like the look of the original costume. They thought it was like super cheesy and not scary at all.
Oh, it's so fucking scary, dude. Look at that.
Creepy as hell, dude.
God damn, dude.
But I think maybe in the 60s that was the case. Maybe it wasn't as scary, but like this terrified me, and I couldn't look out like a window at night without thinking that thing might be there.
I think I
Whereas the one that's more like creature like is not. It just doesn't strike me the same way. But that episode or segment is still very, very effective. They kept most of the original idea intact. I
So
think.
here's my problem with it, though. You can't. I mean, it's hard to see what's going on out there. Like the original one, you get the impression that he's like, like look what I'm doing, and the other one's just like, look, I'm gonna throw a thing in here. But it's not like you can't see the expression of like he's goading him almost, like into freaking out.
Yeah, it's more just like his silhouettes or whatever. Like here, he's getting struck by lightning as he's messing with the engine. But it is what it is. Did you guys have any favorite lines from any of the segments?
Yeah.
I only wrote down one line.
I wrote down
I
a
got
couple.
one.
Go ahead, Jeff. Give me one.
I told you cartoons are good.
Mine was from that segment too. The only one I wrote down. Mine is Manip. That's all, Ethel. When he sends Nancy Cartwright, aka Bart Simpson, into Cartoon Land.
Yep.
And
that's where she would stay for the next 25 years.
To this day.
30
She's still
years.
there.
Jesus, 30 plus years.
Oh, do a remake and come back to that, yeah.
You're supposed to be happy when your wishes come true. That's from our own Jeremy as Anthony.
It's funny, of all the segments, we're picking from the one segment.
I know. But I got
the first segment was all racial slurs.
I know.
I can't like quote anything from that.
I wrote them down, but I'm like, Jesus, I hate myself, so I'm not going to read any of those. But I love Scatman Crothers. We lost him 3 years after this movie, I think. But he goes, I found out a long, long time ago that I wanted to be my own true age and try and keep a young mind. And I love that quote for more reasons than just this movie. Rest in peace, Scatman. You're amazing.
Truly. Yeah, favorite lines. That was favorite lines. Let's move on to our final thoughts. And we're going to start with Jeremy is going to give us his Cult Filmometer score, and then we'll each give our final thoughts and reveal our own scores at the end. We have this thing called the Cult Filmometer on our show.
Okay.
And all films are subject to being rated on the Cult Filmometer.
Okay.
And we always do ask the guests to take part in giving a score that we plug in along with ours. And so I would ask you, and I'm going to give you two options on this, actually.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you how you would rate Twilight Zone the movie on the Cult Filmometer. It is a scale of 0 to 100, and that's usually the only rule. But I will say that I will give you the option because of the controversy thing around that. I'll give you the option of rating just your segment if you want to, or if you want to rate the entire movie 0 to 100 as it stands as a cult classic. So there's no rules other than 0 to 100, really.
Okay, so gosh, I couldn't compare it against other cult classics because that seems such a broad universe. Mm-hmm. So let me qualify this, if I will. I thought that at the time, so I brought a buddy of mine at the time to one of the premieres, and it scared the heck out of him. Okay, now he was 12 or 13, just to clarify that. Yeah. He said, oh my God, that was so scary and those effects were so real. Okay, so at the time, the effects were cutting edge. You look at them now and you go, but this is a while back, right? I would say it's probably, for nostalgic reasons, for the fact that it was a remake of such a powerful series. The fact that I thought that they were remade pretty darn well, especially the one. My favorite was the John Lithgow one. And I'm going to exclude the accident because, not to take anything away, but I'm looking at it as a film. And again, I'm not taking anything away from the tragedy that happened, but looking at it as a film, I would say that on a scale of 0 to 100, I think it's probably around a 75. Okay. I don't know where that sits, but I think it's right in there. I think it's pretty darn good.
Pretty darn good. We're starting out with the pretty darn good 75. And Dames Marvs, where are we going to go with your final thoughts?
Where do we go from here? Well, we already talked about basically the main point that I wanted to make in this entire episode was the walking in other people's shoes episode, or part where he was forced to they're going to hang him because he's black. They're going to chase him because and that just struck me. I don't know that it added points because it's still a film that I have to consider up against every other film that I've ever seen. And I have a list, and I'm sticking true to my score that I had when I watched this originally, and I had scored it a couple of years ago on this massive list that I keep. Sometimes when we do these episodes and we watch a movie that I've already watched and scored, something changes either because of the guests we've had. I didn't have that experience that you had with Jeremy. I'm sad that I missed it. I will try not to miss anymore, but it's bound to happen with schedules and whatnot. I'm glad you were able to do it. I'm glad that he was able to talk about some of the tragic things that did happen during the filming of this movie. I remember watching it and thinking originally how much I hated it in comparison to what I knew the Twilight Zone was already. And I think an aspect of that was the fact that it was in color and not in black and white. I think it would have done this movie a great justice and probably added points for my final score if this movie was in black and white like the originals were. I don't think this is something that Rod Serling would be proud of this day and age. I think he would have thought, I did these way better. What was the point of this? And I will show my score when the rest of you do, but those are my thoughts.
Jeff?
Twilight Zone, I hadn't seen this one in a very long time. I actually don't own the movie on home video. I'm kind of thinking I should probably add this to the collection. The writing is pretty good. It's pretty standard for some of the segments, but the acting and the casting is what really shines through. Some of the musical scores really pop for me. Special effects are a great touch. Definitely loved segment 3 with the evil kid. I always get a kick out of those kind of movies in general, so that was fun for me to see that again. All the directors brought some of their talents. Some of them rested on their laurels. I liked what they did, but it wasn't a perfect swing for me. We'll get to my score in just a moment.
Sorry.
As for me, okay, so The Twilight Zone is one of my favorite shows of all time. So the movie had a lot to live up to. Being that Rod Serling had passed on by the time this was done, died in the 70s sometime, I really do think that the narration by Burgess Meredith worked. Burgess Meredith was good, and he was one of the original actors, of course, in a classic episode or two. And he was great. I don't think anybody has done it better than Rod ever in any of the incarnations, but I think Burgess is like second best out of all the narrators that I've seen try and do different versions of this show.
Do you think that's because he had a relationship with Rod?
I think it just has to be like the right tone of voice and delivery.
Like I feel like he gets Rod though. I mean,
yeah,
I feel like
he does.
Yeah, totally.
They tried it with like Forrest Whitaker in the 2000 series, and that just wasn't good.
No.
And Forrest Whitaker is a good actor, but I liked this bumper segment enough. Let the Midnight Special, but it still like that's not. It's very simple writing. It was a very simple idea they came up with, and it was cool. But like the twist ending at the beginning and the reprisal of it was like very simplistic, and like if you were writing this movie today, the writer's room would tell you that. They're like, no, we got to come up with something like more than he's just like a wolf man or something
like
attacking
Dan
you.
Aykroyd would tell you more than that now.
He'd try and turn it into nothing but trouble or something. But yeah, and aside from that, the segments together, they don't really like have anything linking them together that makes for a whole perfect movie to me. And so I'm a pretty tough critic on this one, but let's go ahead and reveal our scores. 64, 72, 82. Let's let the Cult Filmometer do some work here.
You see? Your stupid minds. Stupid.
Final score is a 73.25. James?
73.25 puts it just above Overboard at 70.1 and just below Howard the Duck at 74.79. So it is the second worst film that we've reviewed since we've done this.
Since the
But
TV
it's-
format, anyway.
But it's still an okay score, I think.
Yeah.
There you have it. The Twilight Zone.
It's,
Until next time,
what was
guys.
the point of this when we had Creepshow? Come on. This never should have been made.
Creepshow was better.
They should have just sunk more money in the Creepshow sequels and stuff.